So students, today we will talk about financial and operating leverage as well as the capital structure and the EPS EBIT analysis. Now, as we all know, the assets of a company can be financed either by increasing the owner's claims or by increasing the creditor's claims. Now, the owner's claim increase when a firm raises funds by issuing ordinary shares or by retaining the earnings. The creditor's claim increase when we are borrowing. The various means of financing, they represent the financial structure of an enterprise. Now, traditionally, short-term borrowings are excluded from the financial structure of a company. So therefore, we are only concerned with the long-term claims that are set to form the capital structure. So in short, the term capital structure is used to represent the proportion or the relationship between debt and equity. That is the composition of the firm in terms of debt and equity. Now, equity can include paid up share capital, share premium, and reserves and surplus. That is your retained earnings. Now, the questions that should be asked by any financial manager are like in how should the investment project be financed? There is a project at hand for a firm, then what are the options of financing the project? Now, does it matter that which one of the ways of financing is chosen for the particular investment project or not? It may happen that all the various methods give the similar result, or it may happen that one method is better suited than the other method. A finance manager also needs to ask, how does financing affect the shareholders' risk, return, and value? There is any optimum financing mix in terms of maximum value to the shareholders, or any strategy will not affect the value to the shareholders? Can the optimum financing mix be determined in practice for a company? Is it possible to determine the optimum mix, or is it not possible? And lastly, what factors in practice should a company consider in designing its financing policy? Now, talking about financial leverage, as stated earlier, a company can finance its investments by debt and equity. The company may also use preference capital. Now, the rate of interest on debt is fixed, irrespective of the company's rate of return on assets. The company has a legal binding to pay the interest on debt. On the other hand, the rate of preference dividend is also fixed, but preference dividends are paid when the company earns profits, and the ordinary shareholders are only entitled to the residual income. That is the earnings after interest and taxes, minus the preference dividends belong to them. Now, the use of fixed charges, sources of funds, such as debt in the form of loans and preference capital, along with owner's equity in the capital structure, that is your loan, preference capital plus the owner's equity in the capital structure, is described as the financial leverage or the gearing or trading on equity. The use of this term trading on equity is derived from the fact that it is the owner's equity that is being used as a basis to raise the debt. The owner's equity is being used to raise the debt. That is why it is known as we are trading on equity. Now, the financial leverage employed by a company is intended to earn more return in the fixed charge funds than their costs. The surplus or the deficit will increase or decrease the return on owner's equity. And the rate of return on owner's equity is going to be leveraged either above or below the rate of return on total assets. So that means that financial leverage will provide the potential of increasing the shareholders' earnings as well as creating risks of loss to them. Both things are possible, so we have to maintain a fine balance. It is a double-edged sword. Talking about the measures of financial leverage, the first measure is the debt ratio. Debt ratio is basically the value of debt upon the value of total capital. That is D upon E plus B. D. What is E? E is the equity. D is the value of debt. E is the value of equity. And debt ratio is D divided by D plus E. Secondly, we have the debt equity ratio, which basically tells you the proportion of or the ratio in which debt and equity are present in the capital structure. It is simply value of debt divided by value of equity. Thirdly, we have the interest coverage ratio. Now, interest coverage ratio is basically earning before interest and taxes, that is EBIT, divided by the interest. Now, the first two measures of financial leverage, they can either be expressed in terms of book values or market values, that is your debt ratio and debt equity ratio. Now, these two measures are also known as measures of capital gearing. Why? Because they are static in nature. Why are they known as measures of capital gearing? Because they are static in nature, and as they show the borrowing position of the company at a point of time, these measures, they fail to reflect the level of financial risk, which is inherent in the possible failure of the company to pay interest and debt. Now, because of their inability to reflect the financial risk, these measures are not very successful. The third measure, that is the interest coverage, is commonly known as the coverage ratio or the income gearing ratio. It's opposite of the income gearing ratio. It indicates the capacity of the company to meet fixed financial charges. Now, the reciprocal of interest coverage, that is interest divided by EBIT, is the measure of the firm's income gearing. What I'm trying to say is that interest coverage ratio is EBIT divided by interest, and when you take the reciprocal, when you turn it around, interest upon EBIT will become income gearing. They are opposite of each other. Now, how is financial leverage related to the shareholders' return? Now, see, the primary motive of any company in using financial leverage is to simply magnify the shareholders' return under favorable economic conditions. The role of financial leverage in magnifying the return of shareholders is based on the assumption that fixed charge funds, such as loan from financial institutions or banks, can be obtained at a cost that is lower than the firm's rate of return. And rate of return on what? The firm's rate of return on net assets or the ROI. All right. Thus, when the differences between the earnings generated by assets financed by fixed charged funds and cost of these funds is distributed to the shareholders, the earning per share or the return on equity will increase. Now, when we talk about EPS and ROE calculations, we see that earning per share is simply profit after tax divided by number of shares. Now, what is profit after tax? It is basically your EBIT minus interest, and it is adjusted for corporate taxes. T stands for the corporate taxation and N is the number of shares. Similarly, return on equity is profit after tax divided by the value of equity. Again, the same EBIT minus interest adjusted for taxes divided by equity. Now let's talk about analyzing alternative financial plans. Okay. Now suppose there is a firm and the management of the firm is expecting a before tax rate of return of 24% in the estimated total investment of rupees 5 lakh. Total amount invested at rupees 5 lakh. Now they have two scenarios. Either first scenario is to raise the entire funds by issuing 50,000 ordinary shares at rupees 10 per share. Second alternative is to raise rupees 2,50,000 by, that is half the amount, by issuing 25,000 ordinary shares at rupees 10 per each, and borrow other half, that is 2,50,000 at 15% rate of interest. Now first alternative only consists of equity, and the second alternative consists of both equity and debt. Now the interest percentage is, how much is the interest percentage? Interest percentage is 50%. That is, sorry, the tax rate is 50%. All right. Now when we calculate all the values, you can see in the question that for the first method, EBIT is how much? EBIT is basically earning before interest and taxes is rupees 5 lakh into 0.24. How much is that? That is 1,20,000. All right. How is it 1,20,000? Because in the question earlier we talked about that the firm is expecting a before tax rate of return of 24%. So this before tax rate of return, that is your 24%, means that EBIT will be 0.24 of 5 lakh. That is 1,20,000. Now interest is 0 because there is no debt. So we calculate profit before taxes. That will be same, 1,20,000. Then what do? We deduct the taxes. How much is the tax? Tax rate is 50%. So 50% of 1,20,000 is 60,000. Fifth point, what do we get? Profit after taxes. How much is the profit after tax? 60,000. Now total earnings of the investors are profit after tax plus interest. How much is the interest? 0, because there is no debt. So the total earnings of investors are same, 60,000. All right. What are the number of shares that we decided? 50,000 ordinary shares. All right. Number of shares is 50,000. So when we calculate earning per share, looking at our earlier formula from the previous slide, when we look at the earning per share, this is the formula. Profit after tax divided by number of shares. So profit after tax is 60,000, number of shares is 50,000, and the value of earning per share is 1.2. Now what is the value of return on equity? For return on equity, profit after tax divided by the value of equity, as you can see. So it is 12%. All right. Now the second scenario goes that we have, how much is it saying? We have 2,50,000 rupees we are raising by ordinary shares. Okay. And rest 2,50,000 will be at 15% of interest. Okay. So now as you can see that in the second case, again, EBIT will be same because it is 24% of the entire amount, and 0.24 of 5 lakh is 1,20,000. Minus the interest. Now, of course, we have interest because we have debt. What is interest? It is 15% of 2,50,000. How much is 15% of 2,50,000? It is 37,500. Now, after deducting the interest, what do we have? Profit before taxes. We have 82,500. And again, the exact policy keeps going. Then what do? Then we deduct the taxes. How much are the taxes? Taxes are 50%. That is 50% of 82,500. That is 41,250. Now, when you deduct it, what value do you get in profit after taxes? you get 41,250. Now total earning of the investors are PAT plus interest. So in our case, in the second alternative, it will be 41,250 plus 37,500. How much will that be? That is going to be 78,750. Similarly, this time what are the number of shares? Now in the second scenario, number of shares is 25,000. So again, when we calculate EPS, it is going to be 41,250. That is your profit after taxes divided by, for EPS, we are talking about EPS. It is going to be 41250 divided by 25,000. That is 1.65. Secondly, calculating ROE. In the same manner, profit after taxes 41,250 divided by the value of equity, and it is going to be 16.5%. So now you can see, now you can very clearly see what is the impact on ROE when we go from first alternative to the second alternative. We see that the impact of financial leverage is quite significant. When 50% debt, that is debt of 2,50,000 in the total capital of 5 lakhs, is used to finance the investment, the firm earns 1.65 rupees per share, which is 37.5% more than 1.2 rupees per share it was earning when it was earning in the first alternative. And ROE is also greater in the same percentage. Now students understand, EPS is always greater under the debt equity plan for two reasons. First, under this plan, the firm is able to borrow half of its fund requirements at a cost, that is 15% was the rate of interest, at a cost which is lower than its rate of return on total investment. What was the rate of return on total investment? It was 24%. Okay. Rate of return on total investment is 24%, and the rate at which we are borrowing in the second case is 15%. So whenever the rate of borrowing is lesser than the rate of return, the firm will always have a benefit. All right. Now, the second reason is that under the debt equity plan, firm only has 25,000 shares as against 50,000 shares under the all equity plan. So consequently, the after tax leverage of 11,250, the after tax leverage of 11,250 divided by 25,000 shares increases the EPS by 0.45 from 1.2 to 1.65. All right. I hope this is clear. Now moving further, what is the interest tax shield? Another important way of explaining the debt to see the impact of interest charges on the firm's tax liability is the interest tax shield. Now try to understand that these interest charges are tax deductible. Therefore, they provide tax shield. Whenever any company has to pay interest, it reduces its taxes. For example, if I have taken a home loan, then I can use that interest that I'm giving in the home loan to deduct in my income tax. Similarly, companies also have this provision. Okay. Now moving further, what is the effect of leverage on return of your equity and earning per share? Now listen, the financial leverage is going to have a favorable impact, a good impact on earning per share and ROE only when the firm's return over investment, that is ROI, exceeds the interest cost of debt. Okay. Whenever ROI is greater than the interest cost, interest percentage, leverage is going to be favorable. Whenever the interest is higher than the return over interest, that is your ROI, return on investment, in that case, it is going to be unfavorable. So we always have to remember that leverage can be used favorably, it can be used in our favor in the case when the return on investment is higher than the interest. Like in our example, the return over interest was 24% and the interest rates was 15%. So because ROI was higher than I, so the second alternative was better and leverage worked favorably for us. All right. Had it been the other way around, had the ROI been 15% and had the interest rate been 24%, leverage would have been unfavorable. The values of ROE and the value of earning per share would have gone down in the second alternative instead of going up. All right. Now let us talk about the second scenario, which is your varying EBIT. Okay. Here, let us consider 4 possible economic conditions: very poor, poor, normal, and good. Now, the firm may have a 5% chance of performing very poorly and earning a negative 5% return on its total assets. What is going to be the negative return? It is going to be minus 0.05 into 5 lakhs. That is minus 25,000. Now, if the economic condition is neither very poor nor normal, that is, it falls in the poor category. So in this case, the firm may be able to manage a return of 10 to 15%. All right. It may have either 10 chance of earning 10% or 15%. If it earns 10%, EBIT is going to be 50,000. If it has a chance of earning 15%, EBIT is going to be 75,000. All right. Under normal economic conditions, the firm has 35% chance, all right, of earning 32% return. It has 35 to 30% chance of, it has a 30% chance of earning 32% return. All right. So, and what is the end case? The end case is that when economic conditions are really very favorable, everything is going in favor, the firm can earn as high as 60% return. All right. So the EBIT is going to be 300,000. That is your 3 lakhs. But there is only 5% probability that this is going to be happen. This is going to happen. The chances of a very good economy are only 5%. All right. Now here what we have calculated, we have basically calculated the EBIT and the ROI, that is earning before interest and taxes, and ROI. How have we calculated it? By the simple formula, because EBIT now it is based upon the sales. All right. Now let us look at this first. Now sales are rupees 510. All right. What is the total cost? 535. Okay. And that is your variable and fixed is 535. And what is EBIT? EBIT is sales minus total costs. That is 510 minus 535. How much does that give you? Minus 25. So return over investment is minus 5%. It is in negative. Similarly, 660 minus 610 gives you 50. So you have a ROI of 10%. All right. How is it 10%? Because 50,000 divided by 5 lakhs into 100 is 10%. Now you have 710 minus 635 gives you 75. Now 75,000 of rupees 5 lakh is 15%. And so we go on till the end, where 1160 minus your 860 gives you 300, and that is your 300,000. Okay, so it is 3 lakhs. 3 lakhs of 5 lakhs is how much? It is 60%. Now let us look at different scenarios. First scenario is where you can see conditions are very poor and there is zero interest. All right, interest is zero in the first case where there is zero debt. Okay, so in this case, as we discussed, this is the previous case only, which we discussed in the previous slide. Here there is no interest, you can see, so we achieve these results. All right, now when we talk about second scenario, we see when we have 25% debt. Okay, 25% debt means that what is EBIT? In the first case, it is going to be minus 25, same. EBIT is going to be same in both the cases, case 1 and case 2. All right, but this time we will also have interest. How much is the interest here? Your interest is, what is the percentage of interest that we decided? So now in this case, the interest tax shield is 18,750. How did we calculate it? It came out from the previous example. In the previous example, you can see we had interest as 37,500 and tax rate was 50%, that is 0.5. So what was the interest tax shield? It was 0.5 into 37,500, which is equal to 18,750, which we are showing here as 1875. This is the interest tax shield. Why are we getting it now? Because now we have debt, so we are paying interest, so we are getting the tax shield. All right. Now you can similarly calculate the other aspects for the 4 different plans. All right. Now, financial plan 1, that was the first one. It does not employ any leverage. You can see there is no debt. As the EBIT increases, earning per share also increases. In fact, earning per share increases with improved EBIT under all financial plans. What is important to note is that the financial leverage is increased. When the financial leverage is increased, earning per share is further magnified. Okay. Now take the example of normal and good years. Talking about the normal years and the good years, what do we see? In the normal and good years, we can see that when EBIT increases, your earning before interest and taxes, it increases from 1,20,000 to 1,60,000. That is 33%. All right. EPS under no financial leverage plan increases the same, that is by 33%. EBIT has increased from 1,20,000 to 1,60,000, but earning per share has not increased under the same way. But earning per share will increase faster under high leverage plans. Okay. Now same conclusions can be drawn for ROE and return on in relation to return on assets. Again, what we are seeing in this example is that favorable effect of increasing financial leverage during normal and good years on account of fact that the rate of return on assets will exceed the cost of debt. That is, if ROI exceeds the cost of debt, leveraging will always have a favorable impact. All right. Now moving forward, this is the EBIT EPS chart. It is one of the convenient and useful ways of showing the relationship between earning before interest and taxes and earning per share. Okay. Now, when we are preparing this chart, we can see that EBIT is represented on x-axis, earning per share is represented on y-axis. Now, we have plotted this chart for the previous example, as you can see. All right. Now, what is to observe here is that the line relating EBIT and EPS becomes steeper with more debt in the capital structure, and steeper the line, steeper is the profit potential to the shareholders with increasing earning before interest and taxes. But when EBIT is declining, the loss to the shareholders is magnified. Okay. So for this pink line, you can see both ways. Okay. The point of intersection of these EBIT lines is basically the indifference point. All right, this is the indifference point, as you can see. It is the break-even point, basically, at which the earning per share is same regardless of any level of financial leverage. All right. So from the previous example, earning per share is same for all financial plans when the firm earns 15% return on assets. All right. That is EBIT of 75,000. For EBIT of 75,000, earning per share remains same irrespective of any kind of leverage. Now 15% return on assets, it is just equal to the cost of debt. All right. Now moving forward, what are the ways to calculate the indifference point? EPS formula for all equity plan is EBIT divided by NE. What is N1? N1 is the number of ordinary shares. Okay. For EPS formula for debt equity plan is, what is the EPS formula? It is adjusted for taxation, that is 1 minus T, EBIT minus interest divided by N2. Okay, N2 is what? It is again the number of ordinary shares under the debt plan. All right. Now, since the two formulae are equal, we can equate them and we can further solve. Now, students, after financial leverage, when we talk about operating leverage, it is basically, what does it affect? The operating leverage affects the operating profit, while financial leverage is affecting the profit after tax. Okay, operating leverage affects the operating profit in the same way as financial leverage affects the profit after tax. Okay, what is the degree of operating leverage? Degree of operating leverage is basically the percentage change in EBIT divided by the percentage change in sales. Now here we talk about in terms of sales. How do we calculate the degree of financial leverage? Degree of financial leverage is calculated as percentage change in earning per share divided by percentage change in EBIT. All right. So these two can be easily calculated. So this is all for EPS, EBIT analysis and operating and financial leverages. Thank you.